Hello, everyone. This is Maria Fernanda Araujo. Today, we're going to talk about the product number one of the signature culture versus civilization, which belongs to the bachelor degree in Spanish and English. So, my name is Maria Fernanda Araujo, as I said. The first point of this product is the introduce yourself. Okay, so my name is Maria Fernanda. Once again, I'm 25 years old. I'm currently in the seventh semester of this bachelor degree. If I can't mention some of my interests, I can say that I like to read, like video games on my phone, so on. So maybe Mariana will start with her presentation.
Hi, my name is Mariana Devia. I'm 19 years old and I'm on my fifth semester of the Bachelor. I like music, video games, books, and I enjoy a lot learning about English. Now, Maria Jose can introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Jose Cabarcas. I'm 20 years old. I'm currently in the seventh semester of my career. Talking about my interests, I like listening to music, painting, and watching series.
Well, hello, my name is Luis Angel Murgas, and I am currently in my sixth semester, and I am interested in foreign literature and improving my English skills.
Okay, hi. My name is Juan Jose Collazos Cortez. I am 23 years old and I'm cursing the fifth semester of the career. Um, as well, I'm interested in video games and music of all kinds. So it's a pleasure.
Hi, my name is Jesus Hinojosa and I'm in my sixth semester. I'm 22 years old and I don't know, I'm a rapper. I really like music and writing songs, and I also enjoy playing video games.
So, what we understand by culture and civilization? By culture, I think that based on the provide resources, I understand culture as the way a group of people express who they are, who they understand the world, and it includes their language, their beliefs, values, traditions, customs, art, religion, and the way they interact with one another. I think that culture is something that is learned and shared through generations, and it can change over time as people have new experiences and interact with other groups. So maybe Mariana uh, can mention something about civilization.
Yeah, so what I understand about civilization is that it is the advanced way society organizes itself. It could be cities, forming, governments, laws, technology, trade, and even the buildup of knowledge. It is that structure that lets human groups grow larger and more complex.
So, to give a little bit of contrast and comparison between these two points, culture is like more informal and lived, while civilization is organized and built. Culture gets passed down through everyday life, while civilization is established through laws, systems, and institutions. You could say civilization gives a framework, and culture is what fills that framework with meaning.
So to take into account cultural events from our context, which is failed back, we have to mention some of key aspects that represent not only civilization but also culture. Let's begin.
Okay, so about the use of public space, on weekends and holidays, lots of families head to the Guatapuri River, especially around Hurtado. They pack food, hang out by the water, swim, talk, and spend the whole day together. These places turn into a very easy family and friends hangouts. Also, there's Plaza Alfonso Lopez or El Parque de la Vida, and they work as the city's main social spot. People walk, sit, and chat. They join religious processions or even events or just hang out with friends. It gets really packed around the during the Vallenato Festival, but the rest of the year is still like a very lively place to meet. And I think this is both culture and civilization. It is culture because it shows values like family closeness, spending time together, and treating nature as a shared, meaningful space, not just water. And it's also civilization because it needs like a very organized public access, like a basic urban layout and the way the city makes these spots reachable for everyone. Can you pass the slide? Thank you. Now, about social interaction, what really stands out is how much people value family and just being together. The River or the Plaza Alfonso Lopez outings aren't just about killing time, but they strengthen ties between parents, kids, grandparents, and even friends. Long chats happen, the food gets shared, and even neighbors and relatives stay in close contact. There's also like a very relaxed way of living side by side. People greet each other, they stick around to talk and build informal relationships. And these everyday habits create like a real sense of belonging and closeness. And I think this is mainly culture with only a light link to civilization. It is culture because it rests on deep values like putting family first, preferring personal contact, sharing time and food, or creating informal support. And these habits is what shape identity and what gets passed down through daily life. About civilization, it just like it provides the background or the public spaces that lets this interaction happen.
Now, if we talk about slangs and idiomatic expression, I have three examples right here, which are conduerma, which means to be annoying. In fact, that's it. It means to annoyance, tedious, persistence, fastidious, or obstinate thoughts that cause burden or frustration. In fact, is when you are being annoying. An example can be, ya empezó esta mujer con su conduerma. See this woman start again with your nagging. The second example can be vironda. It means walking or wandering around in circles in the same place, or can be moving around without active destination. And an example can be deja de dar vironda y vete para la casa. Stop wandering around and go home. That's it. The third one is chercha, which means to turn someone into the target of joke. An example can be, allá tienen a Hilda de Chercha. They have Hilda as a joke or a target of teasing over there. So the slang idiomatic expression can be both culture and civilization, but it is mainly connected to the culture. The slangs such as conduerma, vironda, and chercha are part of the identity and everyday communication of the people from Valledupar. They are examples of language, share meanings, values, and symbols that have been passed from generation to generation and creating a sense of belonging. So, talking about the music or artistic expressions, music, well, in fact, Valledupar music and the historical influence that it has also had from other Caribbean regions, such as cumbia and bullerengue, perfectly demonstrated. The history of sense of the tone are expressed through four methods: puya, merengue, son, and paseo. Well, we can say that music, especially vallenato, of course, are also represent culture because it expresses the feelings, experiences, tradition, and history of the community. But it also I think connected to the civilization because vallenato and its cultural tradition have become part of the city's social and institutional organization.
Okay, so celebrations and traditions. To begin with, one of the most important celebrations in Valledupar is the Festival de la Leyenda Vallenata. It has been held annually in late April or early May since 1916A in Valledupar, Colombia, and is organized by the Fundación Festival de la Leyenda Vallenata, which works to preserve and promote the folk and popular traditions associated with vallenato music. The festival seeks to preserve the four styles of rhythm of vallenato: paseo, merengue, son, and puya. During the festival, there are concerts on different stages and parties and competitions for accordion players, of all ages who are charged with keeping the tradition of vallenato music alive in Cesar and across the country. One of the most important is the Piloneras Parade, which celebrates vallenato culture through music, dance, and tradition. So, would we consider the Festival Vallenato culture, civilization, or both? I would say it is both because it began as a cultural expression that preserved vallenato music, tradition, dance, stories, and customs. However, over time, it became part of civilization because it is now formally organized through institutions, rules, competition, and other structures. Next slide, please. Okay, so now let's continue with food practices. One of the attractions of the city of Valledupar, along with its music, it is culinary diversity, which includes all kinds of sweet and savory dishes. Some of the city's traditional dishes include sancocho vallenato, chivo guisado, and arepa de queso. Since 2016, the people of Valledupar have been able to confidently claim that they have a signature dish of their region. Arroz de fideo, carne desmechada, plátano amarillo asado, y agua de panela. Therefore, food practices in Valledupar can be considered culture because traditional foods express the identity, customs, and culinary knowledge of the community, which are passed down from generation to generation.
Okay, so religious practices and belief. These are important part of life in Valledupar because they are closely connected to the traditions and history of its communities. Catholic traditions such as Holy Week, masses, processions, and celebrations of patron saints are important social and religious events. At the same time, indigenous communities preserve ancestral beliefs connected to nature, sacred places, spirituality, and respect for the territory. These traditions help preserve history, strengthen community bonds, and keep important values alive. These practices can be considered culture because they go beyond religion and become part of everyday life and community identity. They are expressed through celebrations, rituals, stories, symbols, and traditions that are passed from one generation to another. The coexistence of Catholic and indigenous beliefs also shows the cultural diversity of Valledupar, where different ways of understanding spirituality continue to shape the identity of the region. Next slide, please. Okay, so informal jobs or informal work, as whatever you want to see it. Anyway, so informal work and street vending are an important part of everyday life in Valledupar. Street stalls, food stands, and local vendors transform sidewalks, parks, and other public spaces into places of commerce, interaction, and community life. These activities provide an important source of income for many families while also creating spaces where people meet, exchange products, and share local customs. The presence of vendors also gives the streets a particular rhythm and character, making them part of the social landscape of the city. These practices can be understood as culture because they express a particular way of living, working, and interacting within the community. The way vendors organize their spaces, offer local products, and build relationships with customers becomes part of the city's identity. In a subtle way, the streets become more than physical spaces. They become a living reflection of the people who give them movement and meaning.
Well, one aspect that I think is important when we're talking about the culture of Valledupar is the relationship with La Guajira. Although Valledupar and La Guajira are different territories, yes, but they have a close cultural relationship because people have historically moved between this region for familiar, economic, educational, and social reasons. And this constant interaction allows different traditions, ways of speaking, food practice, music, and customs to influence each other. We can also see this relationship through the indigenous cultures. In Valledupar is surrounded by communities such as the Cancuamo, Arhuaco, Cogi, Huigua, while La Guajira is strongly associated with the Guayu people. Their presence remind us that the culture of his region is not made up of only one tradition, but is the result of different communities living and interacting in the same Caribbean context. I think this is important because culture does not always follow political or administrative borders, no? Even when two places belong to different territories, their people can share cultural connections. So the relationship between Valledupar and La Guajira shows us the culture is constantly being created through an interaction, exchange, and coexistence between different communities. Next slide, please. Well, another aspect that I would like to discuss in this conversation is about the tradition and the modernity of the city. Valledupar is a city with a strong cultural heritage, yeah, but at the same time, it is constantly changing. Urban growth, new technologies, and all the social medias and the new lifestyles are changing the way people communicate, interact, and experience the city. So this creates an interesting situation because modernization can bring many opportunities, but it can also change the way traditional practice are experienced by younger generations. For example, young people may have different ways of listening music, or different ways to communicate and celebrating traditions or interacting with their own community. However, I don't think tradition and modernity necessarily have to be opposites. A culture can adapt to new circumstances while maintaining important elements of this identity. The challenge is finding a balance between embracing change and preserving what makes Valledupar unique in a cultural way. So this leads us to an important question. Can a city become more modern without losing its cultural identity? In this case of Valledupar, I think the answer depends on how its people choose to preserve and reinterpret their traditions as the city continues to develop.
Okay, so if we are going to talk about institutions or social norms, for me it is mandatory to mention the Colegio Nacional La Perena. It is a public school located in the city center, and it was founded in the 1940 and named after Concepción La Perena, a local independent heroine, which shows how the institution is tied to the city's history and identity. It is considered one of the most important schools in the region and has educated generations of families in Valledupar. Um, so it is culture, civilization, or both? Well, I can argue that this is both civilization and culture. Civilization because it is formal, organized institution with a legal foundation, and official structure, and physical infrastructure. But it is also culture because the school carries a symbolic meaning tied to local identity and history. It is not just a building. And for me, for example, it represents a shared sense of pride and belonging for the people of Valledupar. Next slide, please. Okay, the academic system. Now that we have talked about the Colegio Nacional La Perena as an institution, let's look at another aspect connected to education, and it is the academic system itself, particularly the ICFEX exams. the standardized test all high school students in Colombia must take before graduating. These exams evaluate subjects like math, science, reading, and English. And the results directly affect the university admission and even scholarship opportunities, like Ser Pilo Paga, or the now that we are calling that is Matrícula Cero. Preparing for the ICFES is a shared experience for almost every Colombian student, often involving extra tutoring or prep courses in the final year of school. It is culture or civilization. Well, I consider the academic system and specifically the ICFES exams to be mainly civilization rather than culture. This is because it is formal, standardized, and structure created and regulated by the government with clear rules. Official institutions like ICFES and nationwide organization, it is not something informal or symbolic. We can say that it is a system designed to organize and measure education across the whole country.
Okay, so as a reflection, these customs reflect the diversity of traditions in our city, which enrich our culture and strengthen our identity. Furthermore, they highlight our responsibility as citizens to preserve the legacy that previous generations have passed down to us over the years. Therefore, keeping these traditions alive allow us to share our culture with future generations and continue to strengthen the sense of belonging in our community.
And of course, these practices and customs reveal the identity and worldview in a community are deeply connected to traditions, beliefs, food, and shared experiences. The way people celebrate, prepare traditional dishes, practice religion, preserve their customs reflects what a community values and how it understands its relationship with others, with its history, and with its territory.
Well, and now I will give an answer to this question. Would a foreigner understand our culture? And well, probably not completely. A foreigner could understand some aspects of Valledupar, such as our music, food, celebrations, traditions. However, some cultural elements depend heavily on context. For example, expressions like Conduerma, Vironda, and Chercha may be difficult for a foreigner to understand because their real meaning is connected to the way people in Valledupar communicate. So it's a different meaning. The same happens with traditions like the Festival de la Leyenda Vallenata. It is not just a music festival, it is part of our identity, history, and traditions. Therefore, understanding a culture is not only about translating its language, it also means understanding its history, values, traditions, and experience. A foreigner may understand part of our culture, but deeper understanding requires context, experience, and interaction with this community. Culture is not only something we explain to others, it's something we live, we share, and we preserve. Thank you.
So that was all. I hope you really enjoyed this video. Bye bye.